Seeds of Hope. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent when Ambassador Chen Wei stepped forward. Her small frame seemed insignificant among the towering delegates, the crystalline Varthex, the eight-limbed Krolothi, and the gas cloud beings called Nethrum. But her eyes held something none of them possessed, determination forged through centuries of human survival. "You're asking us to abandon Earth," Chen said, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands, "to watch our homeworld die." Council Chairman Thorax, a being of pure light contained within a geometric shell, pulsed with what the translation matrix interpreted as sympathy. "Ambassador Chen, we understand your attachment, but the mathematics are absolute. The cosmic radiation wave will sterilize your planet in 6 standard cycles. Your species has no shielding technology. Evacuation is your only option." Chen looked at the holographic display showing Earth's trajectory. The wave of radiation, born from a dying star cluster 3 galaxies away, would sweep through their system like an invisible fire. Every computer model, every simulation run by the galaxy's brightest minds showed the same result: total extinction of all surface life. "How many can we save?" she asked quietly. "With our transport capacity, perhaps 10 million of your people," Thorax replied. "We've already allocated ships. It's more than we've offered any endangered species." 10 million? Out of 9 billion souls? Chen closed her eyes and saw her grandmother's garden in Shanghai, rows of vegetables growing in soil that had been tended for generations. She saw her nephew's face, lit up with joy as he planted his first seedling. She saw humanity's stubborn refusal to accept the impossible. "We respectfully decline," Chen said. The chamber erupted. Delegates from 1,000 worlds raised voices, appendages, and energy fields in protest. Thorax's light flickered with confusion. "Ambassador Chen, this is not a negotiation. This is extinction level—" "We understand the threat," Chen interrupted, a fire building in her chest. "But humanity doesn't abandon home. We never have. We won't start now." She pulled up her own holographic display, showing schematics that made several delegates lean forward with interest. "For the past year, while you've been calculating evacuation logistics, we've been doing something else. Something you might find primitive," she smiled. "We've been gardening." The display showed massive underground facilities, each one miles deep, carved into Earth's bedrock. But these weren't the bunkers the Council had suggested. Those would fail within years as resources depleted. These were something different. We call it Project Eden, self-sustaining biosphere complexes, 50 sites around the globe, each capable of supporting 5 million people indefinitely. Geothermal power, hydroponics farms, closed-loop water systems, every advancement humanity has ever made combined into sealed environments that can survive anything the surface throws at us. A Krolothi delegate, her translator voice dripping with skepticism, spoke up. "Impossible! Our engineers studied your technology. You lack the molecular bonding agents for radiation shielding at that scale. You lack the genetic diversity preservation systems. We lack your technology," Chen agreed. "But we have something you've forgotten." She paused, letting the weight of her next words settle. "We have 6,000 years of farming experience. We know how to make things grow in the harshest conditions. We survived ice ages, droughts, and plagues. We learned to garden on rooftops, in deserts, in the Arctic tundra. We turned rocks into soil and wastelands into forests." She advanced to the next image, a massive cavern filled with engineered bioluminescent plants, their glow illuminating terraced gardens that stretched hundreds of feet upward. "You see technology and calculations, we see our ancestors' wisdom combined with our innovation. Every Eden complex contains genetic samples of every species we can preserve. Not in frozen storage, that fails when power systems degrade, but alive, growing, adapting. We're creating living ecosystems that will evolve with us underground. Thorax's light pulsed thoughtfully. Even if your engineering succeeds, the psychological toll, your people evolved under open skies. Generations underground would break your species' collective mind. Chen's smile widened. That's what the Krolothi said about humans living in space stations. It's what the Varthek said about our ability to adapt to high-gravity worlds. It's what every species has said before watching humanity prove them wrong. She pulled up footage of Eden Complex 7, children playing in a cavern park, their laughter echoing off walls painted to look like sky, families tending gardens, elderly humans teaching young ones how to nurture seedlings, artists painting murals of remembered sunlight. She said, "We're not just surviving, we're bringing Earth with us, into the depths, every plant, every animal we can save. Every sunset painting and mountain photograph, every poem about rain. We're taking it all below."
Roots in darkness. The radiation wave hit Earth on a Tuesday morning. In the underground cities, nobody felt the moment when the surface world ended. They only knew because the seismic sensors registered the sudden temperature spike as the planet's atmosphere absorbed the cosmic fire. Within hours, everything above ground that had ever lived was gone. Chen stood in Eden Complex 1's command center, watching the surface monitors go dark one by one. Around her, technicians worked quietly, their faces reflecting the weight of what they'd just witnessed. Somewhere above them, the gardens her grandmother had tended were now sterile dust. The forests, the oceans, the mountains, all silent. "Ambassador," a young engineer named Marcus approached, his voice uncertain. "We're receiving communications from the Galactic Council. They're asking if we survived." Chen allowed herself a small smile despite the grief in her chest. "Tell Chairman Thorax that humanity is alive and well, and tell him we'll take those transport ships now, not for evacuation, but for supplies." The first decade underground tested everything humanity thought it knew about itself. The 50 Eden complexes became islands of life beneath a dead world. Each complex housed its 5 million inhabitants in carefully designed levels: residential sectors, agricultural zones, industrial facilities, and the crown jewel of each site, the central garden. In Eden Complex 7, a girl named Amara Okafor celebrated her 10th birthday, having never seen natural sunlight. She lived her life under the carefully calibrated glow of bioluminescent plants, humanity's greatest achievement in the first dark years. These plants, engineered from deep-sea organisms and cave-dwelling flora, provided light, oxygen, and beauty without consuming precious electrical resources. Amara's favorite place was the complex's central garden, a cavern 3 miles deep where the ceiling was carpeted with glowing vines. Under their gentle blue-green light, real grass grew. Trees stretched upward, their branches hung with fruit. And everywhere, people worked the soil with their hands, teaching the next generation the sacred task of making things grow. "My great-grandmother used to tell me about rain," Amara's teacher, Dr. Sarah Chen, the ambassador's niece, said as the class gathered around a small pond. "She said it fell from clouds, cool water drops that made everything smell fresh and new." Amara tried to imagine it, but couldn't quite picture water falling from the sky. Still, she understood the longing in Dr. Chen's voice. Every adult carried that same ache for a world they'd lost. "Will we ever go back up?" a boy named Jamal asked. Dr. Chen smiled sadly. "Someday. The radiation will fade in a few centuries. But not in our lifetimes, Jamal. We're the generation that tends the garden until our descendants can replant it above." But humanity wasn't merely surviving underground, they were innovating. The crisis had sparked creativity that surprised even themselves. Without access to traditional manufacturing materials, they learned to grow what they needed. Fungal networks became living computer systems. Bacterial colonies produced medicines and materials, Every waste product was recycled through biological processes designed to mimic Earth's natural cycles. The Galactic Council watched with growing fascination. Chairman Thorax visited Eden Complex 1 50 years after the wave hit, his energy form compressing to navigate the human-sized corridors. He said, "This is remarkable," observing a vast cavern where engineered trees grew in spiral patterns, their roots forming architectural supports. "You're not just hiding from the surface, you're building a new civilization." Ambassador Chen, now in her 80s and using a walking stick carved from underground-grown wood, nodded. "We're gardening, Chairman, just like we always have. The scale changed, but the principle remains the same. Understand your environment, work with it, and nurture life wherever you find room for it." Thorax pulsed with an emotion the translator struggled to interpret. "When we told you about the radiation wave, we expected grief, panic, chaos. Instead, you got to work. Why?" Chen paused beside a young tree, its branches reaching toward the bioluminescent ceiling. "Because that's what gardeners do when a storm comes. We don't abandon the garden, we protect it, adapt it, and keep it alive until the storm passes." She gestured to children playing nearby, their laughter echoing off stone walls. These kids have never seen a star. They've never felt wind or rain. But they know how to grow tomatoes, how to breed fish in aquaponic systems, how to cultivate mushrooms that taste like meat. They're learning skills that will serve them for generations. But the psychological studies predicted we'd go mad? Chen smiled. Those studies didn't account for purpose. Every person here knows their role. Hydroponic specialists, tunnel engineers, genetic archivists, educators, artists who paint memories of the surface world so we never forget what we're preserving. We're not prisoners underground, Chairman. We're gardeners in winter, keeping the seeds alive.
Breaking through. 217 years after the wave, a young engineer named Kai Okafor, Amara's great-great-grandson, stood in the deepest laboratory of Eden Complex 7, staring at readings that shouldn't be possible. "Run the scan again," he told his AI assistant, a consciousness grown from fungal networks and human ingenuity. "Surface radiation levels, full spectrum." The results appeared instantly, and Kai's heart raced. The radiation had dropped below survivability thresholds, not in a few more generations as predicted, but now. Earth's magnetic field, weakened by the wave, had somehow regenerated faster than any galactic model predicted. The planet was healing itself. Within hours, all 50 Eden complexes received the data. Within days, the Council of Complex Leaders met in a virtual space, their holographic forms gathering in what they called the Sky Room, a chamber painted with memories of clouds and birds. "We could send surface teams," suggested Administrator Liu from Complex 23. "Test the readings, confirm the data before we tell people. We don't want to create false hope." But Kai shook his head, his voice filled with the same determination his ancestor Chen Wei had shown centuries ago. "No more waiting. Humanity has been gardening in the dark for 2 centuries. It's time to plant in the light." The decision to return to the surface wasn't made by politicians or scientists. It was made by the gardeners. Every complex held a gathering in their central gardens, where the oldest living humans, now in their hundreds thanks to underground medical advances, cast their votes by planting seeds in special pots. "These seeds go up first," declared Elder Sarah Okafor, Amara's great-great-granddaughter, her voice strong despite her 140 years. "We return to the surface as we left it, carrying life in our hands." The first expedition suited up in Eden Complex 1, not in clunky radiation suits, but in simple environmental gear. Humanity had learned to engineer biological protection into their very clothing, grown from modified spider silk and enhanced with radiation-resistant proteins. Kai stood in the elevator that would carry them up through 3 miles of rock, surrounded by 50 volunteers from different complexes. Each carried a container of soil from their home gardens. Each held seeds, saplings, or starter cultures for the fungi and bacteria that made Earth's ecosystem work. The elevator rose slowly, giving them time to process what they were about to see. Most had been born underground. The concept of outside was academic, learned from paintings and stories, from elderly whispers about infinite spaces above their heads. When the massive doors opened, the silence was profound. Before them stretched Earth's surface, transformed, but alive. The dead gray wasteland they expected wasn't there. Instead, they saw something impossible. Green shoots emerging from the sterile soil, patches of lichen climbing rocks, the radiation-resistant extremophiles that had survived in Earth's deepest caves had somehow migrated upward, beginning the healing process on their own. Life, it seemed, was even more stubborn than humanity. Kai dropped to his knees, tears streaming down his face as he touched actual soil under an actual sky for the first time. The sun hung overhead, familiar from 1,000 paintings, but overwhelming in its reality. Wind, real wind, brushed his face with a sensation no simulation had ever captured. "It's waiting for us," he whispered. "Earth is waiting for its gardeners to come home." The return took 30 years. 50 underground complexes, carefully, methodically, moved their populations upward. They didn't abandon the Eden sites. Those became genetic libraries, safe havens, reminders of humanity's darkest victory. But piece by piece, humanity emerged, carrying with them every plant, every animal, every microorganism they'd preserved. The Galactic Council watched in awe as humans reforested continents with trees that now carried radiation-resistant genes. They planted oceans with phytoplankton enhanced through centuries of underground evolution. They released animals bred in captivity but modified to thrive in the new Earth, slightly different but alive. Chairman Thorax, now an ancient consciousness contemplating retirement, visited Earth one final time. He found Kaio Kaffer, now an old man himself, working in a garden that had once been Eden Complex 7's entrance. "You defied extinction," Thorax said simply. "Your species was supposed to die or scatter to the stars. Instead, you hid in your planet's roots and waited for spring." Kai looked up from the tomatoes he was staking, descendants of seeds that had grown in the dark for 200 years. "That's what gardeners do, Chairman. We understand that death feeds life, that winter comes before spring, that the darkest soil grows the brightest flowers." He gestured to the horizon, where the towers of New Shanghai rose, a city built by people who'd never forgotten what they'd lost. "We're not the same humanity that went underground. We're different now. We've lived in darkness and learned to carry our own light. We've survived on recycled air and engineered ecosystems. We've become something new." "What do you call yourselves now?" Thorax asked. Kai smiled, dirt under his nails, sun on his weathered face. "Gardeners. Same as we always were, just with a bigger garden to tend." Across the galaxy, the story of Earth's resurrection became legend. The humans who refused to evacuate, the species that survived extinction by becoming gardeners of the deep, the civilization that understood what others had forgotten, that life persists, adapts, and grows back stronger if you're willing to nurture it through the darkest seasons. And in every Eden complex still maintained below ground, in every garden growing under open sky, humanity planted seeds and told their children the same truth that had saved them. We survive not through strength alone, but through our stubborn, beautiful refusal to let life die while we draw breath. Humanity had said "fuck yeah" to extinction itself, and won by understanding the simple power of making things grow.